Hello, everyone. This is the very first show in a series called The Swedest Deal, an interview series with well-known poker players that I met throughout the years. And we're going to start in this very first episode with the 2014 main event champion, Martin Jacobson. This show is presented by Tops Poker, and we thank them very much for being a part of this. Enjoy this. So finally we are here. This is the Swedest Deal, and my first guest is my fellow Swede, Martin Jacobson. Martin, how are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Are you comfortable speaking English? So we will open this interview to more audiences than the Swedish one.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm almost more comfortable speaking English these days. I still don't know if I'm thinking in Swedish or in English, but it's one of those things that like certain words come easier to me in English now because I'm so used to it, like living here. But at the same time, you know, like Swedish is my mother tongue, and there's some words that I still, struggle to, feel as comfortable speaking in English. But
I think I did an estimation. Maybe we did like 20 or 30 interviews, you and I, through the years, as I was been involved in the poker business since you started there. So I think you were pretty well off in the English language pretty early. How come?
Oh, I don't know about that. I remember my first trip to Vegas back in 2008. I could barely put together a sentence. I could understand English well because in Sweden you learn pretty well in school, but I just didn't have any experience or I never really practiced speaking, so I really struggle with talking and putting together sentences in verbal form. But I've always been pretty good at writing, and I can understand everything. So but I've over the years of traveling and playing poker all around the world and gaining a lot of friends that are English speaking, I've practiced a lot over the last 10 years or so. So now I feel pretty comfortable.
I think through the poker, I mean, so many years in Vegas and a lot of American poker friends, maybe Canadian as well. Do people in England, where you live now, remind you of you have an American accent almost?
My accent is a bit of a mystery. I'm still not sure how I sound like. I hear people say different things. A lot of people think I have a Canadian accent, and I guess that's just a product of having a lot of Canadian friends that I put like a little Canadian twang on certain words and picked up a few of their slang words and stuff like that. But overall, I think it's definitely more North American for sure than British. I haven't really adapted the British accent, even though it's probably nicer than the American.
I mean, we did a few written interviews. We did a lot of video interviews, especially after the year you were world champion, you and I. But going back to the very first big tournament you played, was the World Series of Poker 2008 your very first international tournament?
Yeah, definitely. Not just that, it was like the first real tournament I ever played. I only really played in like smaller home games and at some clubs around Sweden. Like before, I never played any international tournament or any like major like main event or of that sort of caliber. So definitely a huge huge step up in my early career, and I was just very excited to just participate. Like I didn't really have any goals to win the tournament, or I was just happy to be there, kind of. And I guess that's
I guess it was the first trip to Vegas as well. I guess how did you qualify for that the first WSOP?
I qualified through the PokerStars had something called step tournaments back then, where I was mainly playing sitting goes, so they suited me really well because it was basically you played sitting goes at various buy-ins, and then it was sort of a ladder system. So you could start at I think even as low as $5. I think that was the lowest one. And then if you win that one, you get up to $20. Like you get a $20 ticket rather. And you play $20 sit and go. And if you win that one, you play $80 sit and go. And then just keep going like that, like tripling or 4xing the value of the buy-in until I finally reached, I think I started at like even like $80 or $200, which I believe was the step 4.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, and then I climbed the ladder, and then I won a $700 one, and then a $2,100 one, which was the main.
The final step, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. The final, and then each one of those had one package, and I managed to win that one with a lot of luck and. Yeah,
was it ever a consideration to keep the money? Because if I'm not wrong, I think you could get the money right instead, because you couldn't. You received the money and you were open to get there and buy the things, right?
Yeah. So this was back in 2008. Just to clarify, this was in 2014 when I won. That would have been
of course.
If I was contemplating taking the money and then went to it, that would have been an even better story. But no, so back in 2008, when I first qualified, was like you said, you had the option to either pocket the money, which was the buy-in for the tournament and the hotel there, and I think some pocket money as well. So it was worth $12,000, which back then was the equivalent of a year's salary. I was working as a chef, like I wasn't making a lot of money at all, and I was very early in my career as well, so I was pretty much working for minimum wage at the time. So it was definitely a big consideration, because I never come across this much money ever, and like it was the equivalent of a lot of working hours. But at the same time, I almost saw it as a free roll, because I won, even though I had to play to get there to win the package. I won it. I hadn't really risked that much. I only risked, I think, a few $100s, on the step tournament. So, but it was a bit of a dilemma to decide what to do. Like, I obviously knew that I wanted to go and play, but then if that was the sensible thing to do, that's another question. So I actually asked my mom for advice. So, and she. To my surprise, to this day, she said, "Of course you're gonna go play." Like, for her, it wasn't even an option. So when she had that reaction, it was kind of like eased my decision by a lot, and it became sort of a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I guess maybe a thought went through your mind that let's have this one go and maybe never again. I just want to have this go, and maybe then I go on with my life being a chef and everything. Did those kind of thoughts cross your mind, because you were pretty far from being a poker pro, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I was miles away from being a poker pro. This was also new to me. I was only 20 years old at the time. So yeah, I think you're pretty spot on there. Like, it was sort of a scenario where I felt like I didn't have that much to lose, but a lot to gain, possibly. And I realized probably that this was sort of a rare opportunity, that I'm not going to get this opportunity again if I turn it down. Sure, I could pocket the money and live a little bit more comfortable and maybe buy a few things, but like, that won't really turn into a life-changing experience, which is this sort of was.
I think that's everyone's poker dream. And I guess in your teens, and when poker came through in 4, 5, 6 years earlier with all these TV shows and so on, was this like the main dream of yours to play the World Championships once?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my main dream was just to play any of these huge events. Like, I just wanted to play a main event, play with the pros, and like play internationally. My original dream was actually to play on one of the poker cruises.
I remember, yeah, those were big back in the day. Yeah,
that was back in the day. It was like, I was in the military at the time. I was doing military service down in Karlskrona, and I used to read these poker magazines like day in and day out on my spare time. and there was always these ads and promotions about the next party poker cruise or Ladbrokes cruise, where like you play a tournament and you get to go to like different islands, and like it's all poker on the cruise, and like that was sort of sort of my initial dream. But then it sort of snowballed into just playing, any major tournament, and what better one than the WSOP main event.
I remember it's quite sick to get to the biggest one first, but that's what you did, and we heard the story before, but it's pretty funny how you got there, were prepared for this big event, and it didn't last long, did it?
No, I was probably the first person to get eliminated on the third hand, and 10 minutes or so into a 9-day long tournament, which is quite a feat, but yeah, I think I took it pretty well, all things considered. Like I said, I realized that I was in over my head. I didn't feel like I had a massive edge, or I was super confident that I was going to win. So, of course, it was bitter just because I did just sit down, and then before I knew it, I was eliminated. So that was probably the saddest part about it, that I didn't get to experience, playing for a little bit, for at least a few hours, and be able to absorb more of the experience.
Yeah. Especially coming from been playing online, I guess is one of those hands where you have something that you're just going to be beat by one or two hands, and how could he have that? But it's a main event, and later on in your career, you will probably be able to get away from that hand, right?
Yeah, definitely. Back then I remember thinking to myself, when I checked raised the river, for people who don't know, checked raised the river with the third nuts after slow playing, but my opponent was over betting, so the pot size at the time was already quite significant, and I believe you started with quite a lot fewer chips.
Yeah, I think I had 10,000 back then, or maybe 20,000.
10 or 20, I believe.
Yeah.
So maybe, I mean, still a lot of big blinds, but it wasn't quite 300 big blinds that it is today. But anyway, I check raised the river after slow playing the third nuts that I turned, and my opponent went all in, and I believe it was like 4,000 more to call or something out of 20,000. So. And I just thought to myself, well, I'm pot committed, because that was one of the concepts that I've like read about in like the Harrington's book, or Dan Glimner's poker book or something. Like,
yeah,
that concept kind of like stuck to my mind, and that's the reason I called. Even though what I should have been thinking was, well, my opponent's probably never bluffing here, because I'm showing so much strength. And, I still have a playable stack, so I'm able to get away from it. So I just sort of misunderstood that concept, and that sort of cost me to call it off, just in case he was bluffing, even though, very small chance.
But, everything happens for a reason, and maybe that gave you the opportunity to enjoy Vegas a little bit. You had a few nights there in the hotel room, and did you enjoy to be in Vegas those days that you stayed there after you were knocked out?
Yeah, definitely. I was having the time of my life. I mean, it took a day or so to get over the tournament, but once that happened, I was just, like you say, enjoying Vegas for the first time, as I just turned 21, and like made a lot of new friends, people that I'm still close with today. So that's great. And I mean, nothing beats the first time in Vegas, especially at that age. And when you're a massive poker fan, it's sort of the mecca of gambling, of course. So it was really exciting and a lot of fun.
Yeah, you've seen the film Sliding Doors. Everything happens because that happened, and then that happened. So maybe you wouldn't have won the 2014 main event if you didn't get knocked out in the first time, 2008. Right?
I mean, it's just funny thinking back at it. Like, if someone would have tapped my shoulder and been like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. Like, you're gonna win 6 years later," I would be like, "What?"
Yeah, right.
Like, back then, that seemed like such an impossible feat, because you just get in there day one and you see all these tables and all these players, and you're thinking like, holy shit, like this is
Mm.
one day one out of four, and one of these only one person is going to win the whole thing. So it's just like mathematically, it seems almost impossible to be that person.
Yeah, I think it's good though. Instead of being in the middle of the pack of the whole tournament in 2 tournaments, it's better to be last one time and first one another time, right?
Yeah, that's that's sort of how I try to think about it too.
Yeah.
That's funny as well, because before 2014, I'd never made day two in. I never made day two dinner break. Made it past day two dinner break in the WSOP main event. So I've always been out even sort of early, like either day one or early day two. So yeah, it was just one deep run, but that's all it took.
Yeah, but that's enough. It makes up for it. I guess when you got back from the World Series there, you became a beast on the European Poker Tour and played everything there. How come you got into that after that? And how come you did so well on the European Poker Tour?
Oh, well, I think I got into it because it was sort of the following event. I didn't want to wait around for an entire year to try to qualify for the main event again. So I kept playing online, and I kept playing the step satellites, which I had some success at, and I was much better at sitting goes at the time than the multi-table tournaments. But I was kind of using sitting goes, single table tournaments to practice multi-table tournaments, get better at shorthanded ICM and like all that sort of stuff. So I've always been in love with tournament poker, and my dream was always to play the big events. So I was just sort of like looking for the next big event, and then I found the EPT, the European Poker Tour, and of course that's a lot closer to home and maybe like a little bit more familiar to me, even though the poker scene was quite new. So I was just attempting to qualify for these sort of tournaments, and I managed to qualify for EPT London next, which I believe was 2 months or so later.
Yeah.
In between that, I got second in the Sunday Million, so that helped with some experience in tournaments and some success as well. And then after EPT London, I won a last chance satellite to EPT Budapest, which was my third big live event. So I played the WSOP main in July, the EPT London in September, and then EPT Budapest in October. So like quite a short time span where I went to play all these big main events. And then at EPT Budapest, I managed to get third place, and that sort of gave a nice push for my poker career, and it's carried on from there.
I think you've always been a mixed player because you played a lot of online as well, and always stayed on the tournaments online as well. What would you say is your best area, live or online?
I think live. I mean, looking at results wise,
of course,
where I probably feel more comfortable. I don't think anyone feels super comfortable playing live poker because it is quite a intimidating and uncomfortable experience. But maybe I feel a little bit more comfortable than the average person or the average player. So I think I've had more advantages playing live than online.
It's very difficult to pinpoint what is it that makes you a good poker player. I guess experience is one thing, confidence is one thing. What would you say is your areas where makes you a good live player, which is really difficult to transfer to someone who asks you questions? What should I do to become that good?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things. I mean, I think it starts with some sort of natural talent, and obviously huge passion and love for the game, and that sort of motivates you and inspires you to keep learning and keep growing as a player, and put in the work, studying the game, thinking about the game, practicing the game by playing, and then sort of like learning that way. I think those are like key components to getting good at poker.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember there were so many live events that we could see on TV back in those days. I mean, for quite a few years, we saw the famous players often, but we also saw a lot of different kind of players. Were there any specific players back in those days that you looked at and thought that you learned from, or thought you would be like that one if you became better?
I didn't have any specific like role models or anything like that, but while I was reading these poker magazines and watching the big final tables and then replays on TV, yeah, you sort of became familiar with the pros. It was sort of a different scene back then, 10 years or so ago, but there was more personalities in poker. Like the pros had much bigger like personal traits than today's pro.
Yeah, it was almost like a docu-soap or whatever we call it, like a reality TV. Sometimes those TV poker shows with all these Matterso and Helmuth and Gus and everyone, right?
Yeah, it was a bit of a I wouldn't say circus, but like more like entertainment.
Of course, of course.
But it also made it more interesting to watch, and I mean that might be a reason why I'm here today. Why I did find it interesting to watch these guys. Had they all been sitting with headphones and sunglasses and no one says a word and everyone's just thinking about their ranges and their charts, and like then sort of that might have thrown me off, because that's not really why I fell in love with the game. I fell in love with the game because I realized that all these personalities had such different personalities, but they were all seemed pretty good at poker, and they were all successful. So I thought it was fascinating how they could all be so different, share the same passion and love for the game, but still do really well. So it's just like watching them and then trying to figure out what they're doing and like what different strategies they have. And like that's sort of what caught my attention.
Yeah, over the years in European Poker Tour, you had so many good results. You never won one properly, but do you know where you are on the EPT all-time list? Because there are not that many in front of you, right?
Oh, I forgot about it. That was like a ranking that I had my eyes on for a while, but then PokerStars made a weird decision. They got rid of the EPT brand, I think a few years ago, and then now they reintroduced it. And I'm not quite sure what that means to the ranking system, but it's not something I've looked at in a while. But I was quite high up on it. Had like you say, I never won one, but I've been close a few times.
Yeah, a couple of runner-ups and so on. So that was great to see. Yeah, you became comfortable. What was the best thing about the European Poker Tour, you think?
I think just the convenience of it. That it was all in Europe, and you can travel, and they schedule it so you can go from one stop to another, and you get to see a lot of cool places around Europe that you perhaps normally wouldn't visit, especially as a 20-something-year-old. Like I've been to San Remo in Italy like 10 times or something. Like,
Wow.
name me another 20-year-old has done that. Like, you just wouldn't go there.
There was a lot of fun. It was a good culture around the tournaments. A lot of Swedes went out. A lot of Swedes were successful. I mean, we had fun in Barcelona. It was good fun in London and all these places, and Caribbean Poker Tour as well in Bahamas. You went there a few times, right?
Yeah, like you say, there's all these groups, and like most of them stick together, so you can see like, okay, they're the Germans, here as Swedes, and there's the Finns. They're playing Omaha in the lobby, and like it's like sort of these cultural groups, and like all the groups play like kind of a similar style, and like they're all talking strategy together. So like naturally that would happen. But it was just like super fun because everyone's around the same age, and like everyone like is a poker player, and like we're all playing an individual game, but it almost felt like a team effort, sort of, because there were these groups, and a lot of them were based on where you were from. But I've spent a lot of times with the Swedes, of course. Like I'm good friends with most of them. but I've always enjoyed like sort of breaking the cycle and like maybe spending time on getting to know more people from the rest of the world, like where that are different, that have different cultures, and like sort of exploring that. So I think that was a fun opportunity and something I enjoyed to meet so many people from all over the world, and you sort of become like a family after a while, like even people that you might not speak to that often, but like you see them on the tour, you say hi, and maybe, you know, like you feel like you know each other because you play with each other a lot, and whether it's online or online or on the EPT. But then, yeah, you all have the similarity that you're traveling to all these places, and you're all there for one purpose, and it's to play poker.
I remember through the years there, from 8 to 13, I remember you were always there. You were always having good results. But the really big one was, I remember you played the one drop in the year before you won the main, right? Was it 2013?
Yeah.
Because it was quite rare. There were some big $1 million buy-ins with the one drop first time, and then there was 111,000 buy-in now, and rarely we had any Swedes in there. You know, there weren't too many Swedes. They were mostly the business guys and the really famous pros. How come you managed to get into the 111,000 buy-in tournament?
I think it was just because I had a lot of success on the European tour, and I had some success in Vegas too. But I think especially that year, I felt really good. I felt really strong about my game, and I kind of wanted to see what it was about. Because you know, it's, I mean, most of us dream to play, you know, as high as possible. Like now, I don't really have those sort of aspirations anymore. My goals are a little bit different now. But back then, you know, I just wanted to play a super high roller event and see what that was about, and like, you know, put myself in that sort of pressure and situation, and see if I had what it takes to compete versus the best.
Yeah, I remember it was such a big difference, because playing the main event was such a mishmash of people from all ranges, really good players, really poor players, and old and young. But in those events, the super high rollers, there were not that many soft spots, were there?
No, it's quite a polarized player pool. So you have the best of the best, like the best professionals in the world, of course, like they're gonna find themselves in there. And then the rest of the field is sort of, well, there's some, you know, exceptions. So like I was an exception, for example, like I was a good pro, but not, you know, elite. You know, but then the other majority is just rich, like businessmen who has the money to spend on poker, but they're not professional. So obviously, you know, they have to have quite a lot of money and be successful in one way or another. Like most of them are successful in businesses, and they have their own companies, or their investors, or their sports bettors, and that's just really interesting to me to play versus that sort of player pool, and to also play versus, you know, the best poker players in the world, like sort of compete. And like it creates a really fun dynamic, because all the businessmen that are entering, like you would think they're just easy money because they're not professionals, but they're highly competitive, and that's why they're successful in whatever area it is.
Yeah.
So when they sit down to play poker and they're investing 100,000, it's not like they're, you know, boozing and just like, you know, half asleep. Like, no, they're super focused, and like that's their only goal right now.
They could have an advantage to players who play for others. They might be, you know, have parts of them with others, so they have another. They don't care if they lose it that much, so they can be fearless in a way, right?
Yeah, you would think so, but I feel like some of the businessmen care more, not maybe about the money, but they're so competitive that they just hate losing. Like they don't want to lose. So
Do you think you might have could have an advantage there, because a lot of the pros were really well recognized, and most people knew who they were and how they played and so on. And you were kind of a little bit of a outsider there. People didn't know that much about your playing style. Were you able to use that, or did you feel that?
I think most people like knew or like had heard about me at the time.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, maybe I didn't have as much, because since this is in Vegas, like it's a complete different player pool than the European one.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, first of all, like a lot of the Americans, they don't come over to Europe and play the EPTs, or they didn't back then as much. And likewise, a lot of the European pros don't go to Vegas to play, like whether it's tax purposes, or they don't like Vegas, or it's too far away. So naturally, a huge portion of the field, it will be North American. So it's like sort of a different pool of players. But I think most people perceive me as this like young Scandinavian, aggressive, like sort of pro, and was like treating me accordingly. So I think maybe I got paid in a lot of spots where, like, because of their perceived image of me, rather than actually having solid data to go on, like the history or something.
Excellent. Now, of course, the 2014 was in the day when I think we did an interview, you and I, after day one or something like that, and you were kind of the ship leader of the 2014 main event. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember. We were sitting back at the back of the Rio at some dinner break or something, and we were talking. I remember it super well, actually.
It was because that tournament must have beaten a lot of records when it comes to just going straight up like that, because it seems like from the start you were just heading. I remember I was reporting from the tournament, and it seemed like you were just climbing all the time, never looking back. How far did you just kept on going up? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember quite well. It was weird because, like I said, I'd never had any success. Like I'd never seemed to really get anything going in the main event specifically. I don't know if it's because I feel like I haven't played that well either, because it's at the end of the summer and there's a lot of expectations on you, and you're playing versus a lot of weak players, and you can get really frustrating as well, because you see them play poorly and still do well or whatever, or you card dead, something like that. So anyway, this year was different. I managed to get run well, of course, and get a good table day one. I think I was one of the, if not the only pro. So that was fortunate, and I was able to dominate that table and bag the overall ship leader in the entire field, like all day ones combined. So I think we started with 30,000 and I bagged 200.
Wow.
We're heading into 400.
I think you play
400.
You play like 5 2-hour levels, right? The first day. Yeah, so 10 hours of play, but I mean, going from 30 to 35 was not too bad, or 40 maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the average for day two is like 45,000 or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, very good. And then it just continued. I did my run, my good run, and my level of confidence and comfortability, like everything just worked out. So I actually didn't have a losing level till day 5.
Wow, that's incredible. That's pretty sick, to be honest, isn't it? Isn't it weird? I mean, that can never have happened before.
Never happened before, never.
Oh no.
But that's what I like about tournaments too, that like they're so unpredictable. You just never know what you're in for. And I think that's what draws people to tournaments in general, that it's a lot of fun, because you just never know. Like anything can really happen, anything. So you just got to prepare for whatever. And yes.
But is there something in tournaments that made you, I mean, I never seen you at the cash game tables, and you've never been really interested in that, playing proper cash games compared to the tournaments. What is the reason for that?
I think, I don't know. I like tournaments better because you constantly have to adapt. There's so many different stages of a tournament. You know, you have the start of a tournament where you have no information on your opponents. You get seated at a random table. There's no way to move or pick your table. And then there's no way to control if the table is going to break or if you're going to get moved, or there's a lot of uncertainties that you have to adapt to. And of course, at the start of a tournament, you're playing super deep, like 300, 200 big blinds deep. And then you get shallower and shallower, and you constantly need to adapt. You're playing against different stack sizes, different type of players. Yeah, and then you're approaching the bubble, and you have to, take ICM in consideration. You can push people around. You have to tighten up if you're short. If you're mid stack, you kind of have to try to sneak into the money. And then once you're in the money, you're have your eyes set on the final table or moving up in pay jump. So this is a lot of things. And then, of course, at the final table, there's a lot of factors like ICM and trying to win the tournament. And then also, of course, the fact that you can invest a relatively small amount and win like a shit ton of money. And you know how much you're in for, whereas in cash games, it's easy to let things escalate, I think. I mean, speaking from my experience, my little experience of cash games, that sometimes, I mean, this was years ago and early on, but I sort of struggled to like keep control of myself. I just kept reloading. And before I knew it, I'd lost like 5 or 6 buy-ins. And in tournaments, you kind of know that like, okay, I'm paying the entry fee and like, that's it. You know, unless there's a re-entry, like there's not really that element of it.
No, that's great. Yeah, I really like that. I think that the interesting thing was that after a few years, they had the November 9, and they broke the tournament after the penultimate day, and had a few months to prepare for the final table. Was that good for you? Was that something that suited you think?
Yeah, definitely. I had a lot of success like early on in the main event, like I said, to day 5, I didn't have a losing level. But then sort of as we were approaching the final table, I didn't do as well. And like I was still like healthy in chips. But then on the final table bubble, I lost a crucial pot where I actually misclicked preflop, which let the small blind in for cheap. I was meant to raise, and I turned out limping under the gun. Which, you know, in hindsight, or to be result oriented, like it wasn't that bad of a spot to do some open limping. But at the same time, it didn't work out, and I ended up doubling up the small blind, who I would have folded had I raised. So I had, and then we're still 10 left. So I was.
What did you go from? What position did you have before that hand and after? Do you remember that out of the final 10?
Yeah, let's say I was comfortable at like 4 to 15 chips. Yeah. And now all of a sudden I was 18 chips, I believe.
I see.
10. Well, so now you start thinking mentally like, oh shit, am I gonna bubble this thing now? Like
the final table bubble with the November 9.
It's the most stressful thing ever. Like playing the WSOP like November 9 final table bubble. It's like one of the most stressful things you can do, because everyone knows that after the 10-person bus, it's all a party. Like everyone relaxes. Like it's 3-4 months of just like, trying to get a sponsor, preparing for the biggest day of your poker career, and just enjoying that, knowing that you might win the tournament. But if you bust 10th, it's like, like I can't imagine anything worse, to be honest, because you're so close to getting that experience and that extra like enjoyment, and of course all the added equity of making the final table. But so it was quite a stressful thing mentally to overcome after experiencing that misclick. So I was a little bit not shook up, but like my momentum definitely wasn't in my favor. So to get the 3-4 month break was a huge deal for me.
Yeah, I understand. And then of course it's quite well known how you decided to prepare for this, which was very cool. And I haven't heard about it before, but tell me about how you. I remember some of the guys on that final table that came back and wasn't really serious about it or something, but you came back and you decided to use the time properly. How did you plan that?
Well, I didn't have a plan to begin with, but as soon as I made, because it's not something you really plan for.
No, but I mean after the final table bubble.
Yeah, as soon as I made the final table, I started to think in those terms. Like even the same night, I got back to my hotel room. I was like, okay, I'm in the spot now. Like, what can I do to maximize my EV, my chances of winning the tournament? So I was sort of like treating it as like I had a fight almost, or like a final. Like of course you're gonna prepare to the best of your ability, because it probably a once in a lifetime opportunity. So of course, you're gonna do whatever you can. So I was just sort of brainstorming that night, and I spoke to a lot of my friends, and then I ended up starting a Skype group with a lot of friends to like sort of brainstorm together and build a little bit of a community and bounce ideas of like, okay, how would you approach this? How would you prepare? Because everyone, even though none of them had been in my spot, it's quite rare as a professional even to make it the November 9. They could all relate to the importance and how big of a deal this was for me, because they could all put themselves in my position. So everyone's very helpful and encouraging, and like really like helped me come up with a good game plan to prepare and then also execute, of course. So
yeah, that was cool. I think they some of your friends, they were just, you are that guy, you are seat 4, you're this guy, and he does that, and you prepared and played the final table, right? Quite a few times. How many times before November did you play the final table with your friends? Do you remember?
I don't remember the exact number of simulations we ran, but I think something like 30 or 40.
Wow, that's a lot. Were they okay with that? Were they okay with playing that table?
Yeah, the biggest issue, everyone was fine with it. The biggest issue sometimes was just to get people to be online and to have the time to play, and because it all had to be correlated. So right, no one had to while we were playing, like that was going to be the sole focus. So no one could like play online on the side or do something else. So like they really had to commit to this, and we needed 9 players or 8 players.
Did you find a site or like a simulation program where you can adjust the stacks so everyone started at the proper and the right levels and everything?
Yeah. My friend at Mark Andre, he was sponsored by PokerStars at the time, and they had a home game section. So he managed to speak to someone there, and they set it up. It wasn't the stack sizes were incorrect, but the amount of ships were correct.
Which
so everyone started with equal stacks, and then so what happened was that we would draw for who played who. I had written player profiles of every opponent, where I've like scrolled poker news and like any like sort of information I could gather on them, like how many hands do I think they'll play, what's their approach to this, what are their weaknesses and strengths, and then I would sort of like hand them out to my friends, and then be like, okay, fine, you're playing Newhouse today, you're playing Billy Papas, you're playing Jorit, and then we would chip dump the ship so the stacks would be accordingly.
Right.
That would take sometimes longer than other times.
Play it.
It was quite funny, but and then we would just go from there. Like start with hand 1, and we tried a few different tactics. Like sometimes we would openly discuss strategy as we were playing. Sometimes we would take notes and then discuss after. But what ended up happening a lot of times was that people struggle to commit to play a 3-4 hour final table. Okay, obviously it plays a lot faster online, but still that's quite a lot of time. So they would say like, okay, yeah, I got to run out in 30 minutes, but I'll help you set it up, get it going. And then they would dump their chips to, you know, me or to
like they were knocked out.
whatever. And then we would practice playing 5 or 6-handed and then 3-handed. And then sometimes I would have all the chips. Sometimes Jorrit would have all the chips because that's what we thought would be the most likely scenario. So I'd play a lot of different scenarios. And I think that's what helped me be so comfortable. Like even when I got really short, I knew that I like prepare for everything. So like I didn't have any sort of expectations of how things would go. I just knew that I was going to stick to my game plan no matter what.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, just practicing the ability to be a real short stack and getting convinced that you will have a chance as long as you have a few blinds. You're still not out. And the practice of that is something that is probably worth maybe the most to practice, right?
Yeah, I think it's easy to just prepare for like when things are going awesome. Like, okay, you know, if I get chips, I'm going to play like this, and then I'm going to play like this. And then once that doesn't happen, there's no plan B. There's just like, oh my God, like I'm getting blinded out. Like I used to have 30 big blinds. Now I have 15 or now I have 7. So I think it's important to, even though you, of course, you shouldn't like focus on the negatives, but you have to be realistic and be prepared that things might not go your way, but you sort of have to visualize that as well as like winning the tournament and stuff. But like you also have to visualize a different scenario where things don't go your way. So you've experienced that as well, and then it's not a surprise when it happens because you know you've visualized that as well.
Yeah, sense. Of course. Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I remember you talked about being so focused that you almost numbed yourself. You were forcing yourself to not become emotional. Was that one of the important bits about being able to face that final table with less stress?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
Did that take a toll on you? You know what I mean?
It only took a toll on me after I won because I was so focused and so determined to not get emotional at any point. So I was just trying to think about the game from like a super rational standpoint and just like focusing on my decision making and like not letting feelings or adrenaline or any sort of stuff like interfere with my performance. I was just focusing on my decision making, like 100%. It even got to a point where I strategically put my family like way up in the stands because I didn't want to look over my shoulder and see like my mom or my girlfriend crying or something and be like emotional or something like that. I didn't even want to hear their voices because like my family is emotional to me. So I only wanted my team members, my fellow
buddies.
The people that helped me prepare. Those were the people I wanted there because they were sort of my coaches. So I would look back there and like I knew they weren't. Of course, they were excited, but like they're high level professionals. So like they know how to keep their cool. So yeah.
I imagine it's impossible for someone to imagine the kind of strength of focus needed to do that. And I know you were super serious about it. You were meditating and doing it. Was it so strong, the focus there for so long time that it kind of took a while after the main event was played out for you to get back to normal Martin?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you still feel? Do you know what I mean? Did it take a bite out of your personality almost?
Yeah, it was. It's very weird to explain, and it's something I still haven't really been able to figure out because I feel like I've never really enjoyed the moment, if that makes sense. I just sort of like went there, did the task. Everyone got super happy, and like I was happy as well. But like I was sort of experienced everyone else's excitement, and like that was sort of like what was nice, about it. But like the actual win, like I never. But then I could be in other scenarios, I could win a smaller tournament online or something and feel much more excitement about it. If that makes sense. I don't know if it's because it's so big, it's so like unimaginable, like to win the main event, that you just can't wrap your head around it and like really enjoy it. Like I don't know what it is, but it's something.
Let's say if you would keep the ability to wrap yourself around that big thought, maybe you wouldn't have won it. You know what I mean? You were forced to get to that point to be able to win it almost.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's. Yeah, I don't know. I don't
know. Maybe it was a tool. One of your tools to win was for sure the ability to stay cool. I remember watching you at the table. You looked dangerous and cool and unbreakable in some way. Did you feel that?
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. But yeah, the only problem with that was that after I won and it was all said and done, that was when I struggled to get emotional and like really absorb it and enjoy the moment. Because
bittersweet in a way. Yeah, how big part of that? I know you've been asked that many times, but how big part of the 10 million? Because there was 10 million and you didn't deal there, right? You didn't make a deal with the Heads Up.
No, there really wasn't much time. It just happened so fast.
It was big money for second place as well. So how big part of the 10 million were yours?
So I didn't sell any action, but I swapped a lot for the main event this year, like the most I've ever had actually. But it was all pieces, so it's like 3% here, 2% there, 1% there. But I believe like 20 people or something had a piece of me, so I'd 50% or so, like about half.
Did any of those guys that you swapped with, did they pay anything to you? You know what I mean? Did any of them score or cash for at all?
Oh, before or after?
No, but I mean, out of those 47%.
Oh, in the main event. Yeah. That's a funny thing. Yeah, only one person cashed.
So you got like, $300 or something for someone.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's fine. It's always great to be able to share that, and that it was some of your very good friends that had the percentages. So it's great to spread the joy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got the main part yourself. That's great. What is? I mean, it's nothing more to complete after a main event win. Is there? I mean, did you continue to play like the years to come and I mean, up until when live poker was difficult to continue with through the pandemic, this 2020, have you been playing as much as you used to?
Yeah, I continued to play straight after. I really didn't take much of a break at all. It was just sort of continuing from there, going back on the EPT that started, shortly after the WSOP. I guess this was in November, so I remember I went to EPT Prague shortly after, and then I believe I went to either PCA or Aussie Millions or something like that. So just continued playing, like not like mindlessly, but like I never really took a break to like reconsider things and like what is it that I want to do now, and like what does this mean? I sort of felt, well, first of all, I didn't know what else I wanted to do. So I'm not really one to just sit back and relax, or go on to a beach and just, not do anything.
But you were already in the spot that you sought for. You were already, the thing I think might have been one of the keys was that you were able to stay there and to be in that environment that you really enjoyed being in, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a mix of things. Another thing was that, like, okay, now I've reached this stage. Yes, there's not much. It's not much you can win to top this experience or achievement. But I felt like everything I've been working for, like now I'm at the top. Like now it's time to, enjoy that and like, you know, travel around and be a great ambassador. I felt a little bit of expectations set on me because I was one of the few professionals that been a professional, like quite successful, and like sort of a role model for the game. Like with my success as the EPT, you know, I won some awards and stuff. I've never like sponsored or anything. Like I always funded my own tournaments and stuff, but I still felt like some sort of responsibility to the community to be to stay in the spotlight and like do all these media appearances and interviews and stuff and you know, show my face and be a good role model, at least for the first year.
Yeah.
And then it sort of just carried on, and I just continued playing because I never allowed myself a significant break to reconsider things and explore other areas that I might enjoy.
I think you were one of, I mean, it came a few years earlier than that, but I mean, back in a few years, like 2004, 5, 6, we saw all kinds of winners, and we saw a lot of players unhealthy. They never thought about food and eating and all that bit. They just played, and you were one of the first really that showed that to be physically fit was really important and helped you as a poker player. Do you remember where the poker world were in 2014, or was it earlier than that when they started to talk about that? To be able to become a better player, you also needed to work out.
Yeah, I think it became a thing. Yeah, maybe in like 2012 around there. So like a little bit earlier. But then now I think people in general are getting healthier, like in all areas. It's not just in poker. Everyone's realizing the benefits of living a healthy lifestyle, of exercising, of eating well, and making sure you get enough sleep and like all that sort of stuff. So I think, I don't know, I was probably one of the first, maybe in poker at least, to take it to that extreme. But yeah, overall, I think people are getting more and more healthy.
Are you? I mean, how important is it, and do you stay strictly into that, staying fit as almost no one else, and working out that much as you do, and why do you do it?
It's just sort of something I've always done ever since I was young. I used to play hockey growing up. That's sort of where my sports or fitness hobby sort of started. And then I was playing like indoor floorball and like some basketball. I did some kickboxing, and then just like trying new things. And then when I was 15 or 16, I started going to the gym, and then that's sort of when I made the transition to be responsible. I left the like team sport environment and sort of became my own coach and sort of was responsible. I took responsibility for my own health and fitness. And I realized that I enjoyed it. I didn't have a problem with like pushing myself or like going to the gym. Like I really enjoyed it. Also being able to decide when I wanted to work out, how hard I wanted to push myself. And it just sort of became natural to me. And then I think the eating clean and like being interested in nutrition, that's sort of goes hand in hand, because what you eat obviously, you know, impacts your performance in the gym and also in life in general. So it's just sort of a circle or something where one portion impacts the other aspect so much that you just naturally gain interest over the whole circle.
Yeah, I remember you talking about Natural Stacks, your sponsor, which was quite fitting for you to find them as sponsors for the 2014 main event. And are you still with them?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it was quite funny how that came about. So I guess my training and stuff, like I've always been curious and interested in supplementation and different things you can take to like improve your performance even further, like something like nootropics, for example, which is mainly mushroom component that enhances certain neurons in your brain, can make you think more clearly and stay more sharp, more focused. So obviously it works great for poker. So it was actually in the summer of 2014. I just got into Vegas, and I saw an ad for this company, or I heard about it. Someone was talking about them. And they had natural stacks, that is, and they had their main product at the time was called Siltep.
Yeah.
And it was one of these nootropics. So I remember I ordered a few of their supplements to Vegas because I thought I was going to use them for the summer and see if I had any benefits. So I did for the entire summer, and I did pretty well overall. Like
apparently it worked. Yeah.
Yeah. But even before that, before the main event, I had some like another final table or something, and obviously I made the main event final table, and it was at that point where I was thinking, okay, well, this is a great opportunity to maybe reach out and try to get a sponsor, because it's something I always wanted to do, not just for the money aspect of it or get free stuff, but just to work with a company and like sort of see the business side of things and like represent someone. Like that was really cool to me. So I was sort of shooting for the moon and started emailing all the sort of companies that I could think of, but they all had to be brands that had similar brand values as me at the time. So it would have to be products that I use myself, or
right.
That was really important to me. And obviously Natural Stacks was one of those, and so I emailed them and asked if they were interested, and they got back to me straight away, and they were really keen. So yeah,
that's a sweet story. I think that's nice, and they are still around.
They're still around. Yeah, they're doing well. I mean, especially now during the pandemic, they've been selling a lot of vitamin D and vitamin C, and they have really high quality stuff. So I can definitely recommend checking.
I also know that you moved to London and stayed there just like a year before the main event, wasn't it? Like something like that, like
2011. So
2011. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I've been here for 10 years now.
Yeah. Is that a move that you doesn't regret? Are you happy in London?
Yeah, I am. I don't know. I've lived there for so long now. It kind of feels
10 years, huh?
Yeah, sort of feels natural. But at the same time, like this, I mean, the past year has been a weird one for everybody. But luckily, it hasn't affected me as much because I've been able to still, play online, and like I hadn't been lost my job or anything like that. But it's still been weird because I'm so used to traveling and getting the social aspects of poker and seeing all my friends and playing live poker as much as online. I've always had a 50-50 balance between the two. So now this last year it's only been online, and obviously it's been a lot of lockdowns here, the UK specifically. So it's been tough like mentally, but I'm still no complaints. I still feel fortunate compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think so. The poker players should be happy. I mean, you specialized for quite a while to play those satellites to the live events. None of that right now, but there's other tournaments, right? Yeah, that's great. You also been into. I know one of your main interests back then was after the main event was you were into coffee, right? How come you were so interested in coffee, and what kind of area did you get into when it came to coffee?
Yeah, I always liked coffee for as long as I can remember. I don't know when I started drinking it myself, but I think it's same thing there. Like I realized it gave me a nice cognitive boost every time I drank coffee, and especially playing poker. So I sort of started experimenting like with different brands and different types of coffee. And I became like a little bit of a coffee snob. Like it's like it couldn't be any type of coffee, and like on this brand is much better than this one because of this and that. And there's it might be mold in that coffee, but that's fine, and that's from that region. And like it's almost like a wine connoisseur,
Yeah.
but with coffee.
Yeah, that's cool. What if you would recommend a coffee that is something that people would be able to get their hands on? What would be a good recommendation for a coffee that you know? Of course, I know. Huh?
Flagship coffee.
Flagship coffee. That sounds like I was pegging that up. But is it available only in Britain, or is it available
You
everywhere?
can order it worldwide. Yeah, it's worldwide shipping.
Yeah. What's good about them? It sounds like you told me to say this now, but that's not the fact. I remember you were into Black Sheep coffee.
Yeah, we should mention that I'm an investor in Black Sheep coffee.
Yeah, but that's good. Yeah, I mean, one of the fine things about winning a substantial amount of money is that you could put it into something that you're interested in instead of maybe investing it in stuff that you just think will grow. Yeah, now you had the chance to invest it in something that you're really interested in, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the same principle as my sponsorship aspirations, that it's important to me that I invest and associate myself with other brands and companies that have the same sort of core values as me, that are thinking the same way, and that I can relate to and want to represent.
Yeah. I mean, of course, wherever one is, you have especially tough time in London now. I know they locked it down a lot, and you're on different tiers, so it's more or less not possible for you to get out. But when they're going to lift the pandemic, what are you mostly looking forward to?
Oh boy, yeah. Honestly, I really miss Vegas. I never thought I was going to say this because I've spent so much time there every summer, but I really miss miss Vegas, and especially the WSOP and playing the main event.
We'll see. I don't think we're going to get there this summer, but the summer 2022, we might be able to go there again. Maybe this summer. You never know, but probably not.
Yeah, it all depends on the vaccine, I think. We'll see.
Yeah, one of the things that shows that you're still involved and care about poker is the new poker course you started with Fire Jatin, right?
Yeah.
What is that all about, and why did you start that?
Well, it sort of came about because of the lack of live poker and me playing more online, and that sort of forced me to rethink things. That like, okay, well, like, do I really enjoy playing this much online poker, and like, is this what I want to do? Like, I sort of feel like I'm stuck in the same pattern as I was 10 years ago. Like, of course I love the game. I'll always love the game. I always have passion for the game, and there's a lot of room to improve now with a lot of softwares and stuff. Like, you can improve your game a lot. But I was sort of searching for something else, like like a purpose. I guess I was a bit cringe maybe, but like something that was more fulfilling than just playing poker, which I've been doing now for so long. And this year actually like provided me with pretty good opportunity that I got the way it came about with Farid was that he was doing his own poker course this last year for the same reason as I was, or that I wanted to do something different. That he's more of a live player, and he doesn't really like online play, and he was like looking for doing something more fulfilling than just playing online. So he set up his own course. He did a lot of Spanish classes, but one English class. And one of the components of each course, he invites a special guest. So it started with him inviting me to his course as a special guest. And then, I got to meet the students. So there's 10 or 15 students in each group. And I really enjoyed it. I'm not one to like enjoy being the center of attention, but just to see and have meaningful conversations with aspiring poker players, and then showing deep interest in listening to what I have to say. And also it was sort of a reaffirming experience for me, because I realized that I actually know a lot more than I maybe give myself credit to. There's actually people that are very interested in learning from me, from my experience. So I think once I realized that, and me and Farid started talking, because it went really well and it was really appreciated, we thought that, okay, well, why don't we put together a course together? Because we had really good energy, and we got along really well. So that's sort of how it started. And then we spent the next few months designing this course that we were doing together, and we launched it at the beginning of this year. So 3 weeks ago, we had our first group, and we're doing 2 classes every week of 2 hours each. So it's sort of 10 models where we go from everything from pre-flop ranges to final tables. We have the special guest, the mental coach, post-flop play. We basically cover the whole game. But what we try to do is to simplify the game, because obviously poker is a super complex game. So it can be quite overwhelming, especially for someone who not that experienced or doesn't have that much time to invest in studying. We try to break it down to the key components, the structure of the game. So our students can learn to think about the game for themselves and be able to figure out a lot of the spots, a lot of the situations on their own without having to memorize it, but they know the core principles behind the decision and how to structure their own decisions. And then it becomes much easier without sacrificing, a ton of EV. So I think that's the key and superior approach to teaching the game. And it's really exciting, even for me, to really get down to the nitty gritty of these principles and sort of reinforce them in my own game, and sort of see poker from a whole other perspective, and then teaching it to these guys that are just so eager to learn. So I really enjoy it so far, and I can't wait to do more of these courses. So if anyone's interested that's listening, they could just go on my website, go on coaching, and then there's a full program there, and then just click sign up, and I'll give you more information.
Yeah, I think there's a new way over the past few years. The internet, the tools to communicate online through Zoom and different kind of. I used Skype for 16 years or something, but now working with groups and so on has made it possible to teach live poker online in a way, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's so nice to get some sort of social aspect back, and also I think there's a lot of benefits to group coaching, because everyone's there for the same purpose. Everyone wants to get better. And when you're studying in group, you can learn from each other, and you can get ideas. And maybe someone asks a question that you wouldn't have come up with yourself, but you're really curious to hear the answer. And then we can discuss that. And then that leads into the next thing. And then I think it's a very efficient way. And it's also good because when you study on your own, one, it can be quite overwhelming. But when you're in a group, it sort of holds you accountable, because you don't want to let your fellow students down or your coaches down, because everyone's there and everyone needs to contribute. Or we don't put a lot of pressure on our students, of course, but the only thing they need to do is show up or be be present during the class.
Yeah, that's great. We had the poker boom going through from 2003, when Moneymaker came from nowhere and won the main event, and all through those years where the poker just kept on booming. Do you think there is a chance after the pandemic that poker is getting back and getting some, not like back then, of course, because it was a new thing then, but will it come back and become and be a big thing again, poker?
I always hope so, but I don't know. We've been having this discussion, a few times over my career, until going back to when the initial poker boom happened, and it just never seems to really occur. So I'm not too hopeful. I'm optimistic that the game will stay strong and maybe not grow, but at least keep it on a consistent level. I think the one thing that's preventing growth massively, and like what's the key component, is that there's so many legal and like government regulations nowadays that it's really hard for it to be another boom like that, where it was just an open market and everyone could participate, everyone's playing in the same network, and that just, obviously prize pools were a lot bigger, but the one key thing is the marketing.
Yeah.
Back then you were able to market it, like it was much more incentives for the organizers and the poker sites to market it, because there was just much more to gain. Now there's a lot of government issues and restrictions in place, where like poker is illegal in China, for example, and like you can't play online poker in the US. You just see more and more of these countries are closing the borders and creating their own networks rather than joining the global ones, and that's really hurting the progress and the ability to grow the game and create a new boom.
Yeah, hopefully we get the opportunity to go to new poker tournaments with maybe not the same numbers as back then, but still big enough to create a stir and also have some fun, because there were quite a few great tournaments we went to there and had a lot of fun, didn't we?
Yeah, I would love that.
The last thing I see, my friend Hjalmar is a fan of your sign behind you. What is that all about? What is that?
This is just the flag I put up because you said you've been working with cool.
Yeah. Of course. That is always good with some competition. So that's your team, huh?
Yeah. I used to go to a lot of games growing up.
Yeah, that's good.
When I lived in Stockholm.
Yeah. Many things to talk about, Martin. It was really nice to go through some of it, and eventually we will have the opportunity to talk again, I hope. Anything specific you look forward to in the nearest future?
No, just continuing with this coaching project and like growing that to see where that takes me, and just staying open and explore other areas and things I want to do. And hopefully poker will be back soon, live poker. I think it will by the end of the year, maybe not the summer like you said, but next year I'm confident we'll be able to go to Vegas again.
Yeah, and I guess through this poker course of yours, it's possible to get a lot of tips and so on. Otherwise, for people listening to this, what is it? If you want to, I mean, you can't aim to win the main event, but if you want to have an opportunity to how the land lies today, what should you do if you're a young player that wants to try it on like you did like 13 years ago or something? What would you do today? Just something, a small tip.
It's tough because the poker market is just so different today than it was back then. Back then it was a lot easier to be an up and comer because no one really knew how to play. Now the competition is really tough, but there's still don't get me wrong, there's still a opportunity, of course, to break in. It's just a harder barrier to break into. But I think starting small and playing the low stakes tournaments and sort of doing what I did, playing satellites, super satellites to the next satellite, and then just never know what can happen. Like like I never expected to win a seat to the main event and get to play the main event, but it did happen, and it was easier. It happened a lot easier than I expected it to. So I think just reinvesting money and like starting small and then just try to grow But don't be too afraid to take risks, because you have to take risks in poker. Just obviously don't gamble for money that you can't afford to lose.
Right. Excellent advice from the 2014 main event champion, Martin Jacobson. Really nice talking to you, Martin, and take care of yourself, and we talk sometime soon again, okay?
Yeah, it's been great.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.